I'm guessing this time last year, Cameron Dicker was thinking, I'm going to play my last year. I'm going to go try to make a spot in the league. Not a whole lot has happened in the last 12 months other than this super senior year exists because everybody gets a COVID freebie. And there's a legitimate way through NIL for a guy like Cameron Dicker to make enough money to justify at his position coming back for another year. Because it doesn't do him any harm to get 12 or 13 more game reps of punting and kicking under his belt. Like it's not like the NFL will frown upon that the way the NBA often does on young basketball players. They want them young. Yeah. And it's like, oh, he's 22? Ugh. I don't think the NFL is going to frown if 24-year-old Cameron Dicker comes in versus a 23-year-old. They just want good players at that position and a little bit unique. It might harm him if he was a linebacker or a defensive end or something like that, but that he's a kicker, I just don't think it matters. I think he's coming back. That's my prediction I'll close with. I think Cameron Dicker will come back, and I think it will be because of glory. Break that record, man, because it might very well be that record stands for the rest of his life. And he can always be on UT's all-time leading scorer. I need a job. And that'd help open up doors. And I think the NIL money, if it's there to be had. I mean, look, Cameron Dicker might be watching this video and he'd be like, yeah, Catch, make that NIL money. You ain't giving me a deal at Orange Bloods. And not everybody's making Bijan money. It's a lot. Maybe the reality is that $200,000 for Cameron Dicker is just not going to happen. But it seems like a world where it could.
It's like where it should to me. It should. But again, it's not my money. So it's easy for me to say that, right?
Yeah, it just feels like there's enough wealthy alums who are clearly interested in giving money to the football program in the name of paying players through NIL. I mean, we've seen it, the amount of money that they've raised just on the Pancake Factory. It would seem like one of those guys that gave a whole bunch of money to the Pancake Factory would be like, oh, I need to take one for the team. It's going to be, Dick's Alligator Shoes brought to you by Cameron Dicker, who's making like $250,000 this year, hawking shoes. Hey,
yes.
Now that it's happening, don't get mad at Anwar and I for talking about the quiet stuff out loud. Like, they're paying players. And Cameron Dicker just seems like the kind of guy that if it comes down to money, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm all for it. There's got to be a footwear company in Austin that can say like, hey, when I'm not out there kicking field goals at UT, I wear these boots from,
yes.
Right? I just gave someone an idea, right? You can cut Dicker to check it out. There's got to be something where you can make this thing work, and it's kind of, it's a recognizable name.
You can't say to me that Texas had that offensive line thing, that announcement that they're going to pay every offensive lineman on the roster $50,000 for just breathing and being on the roster. You can't tell me that out of one side of your mouth that's okay. And on the other side of your mouth, it's like, hey, we need that kicker to come back. Where's the cash? Like, I'm just not going to pretend like we live in a world where that can't happen anymore. We're watching it happen. I think Cameron Dicker is incredibly important to this program going into next season. I didn't say this in my column. He might be worth a game or two combined between needing to make a field goal in a close game. I think we take his kickoffs for granted. He's one of the best in the country at that. And, to have a punter who's last year averaged over 47 yards a punt in your hip pocket, what if that drops down to 42? Like, sometimes this is a sport with really thin margins. And I don't know that there's another guy in the country that they could say, okay, we're going to go get a kicker punter, go offer somebody. he's kind of unique in that he did both really well.
Yeah.
And if he leaves, maybe you spend a scholarship on a kicker, right? There's a grad kicker out there somewhere, but maybe he can't do the job of three guys quite like Cameron Dicker. I don't want to make it sound like Anwar and I are like lobbying for someone to pay Cameron Dicker a lot of money. We're just pointing out that he was really important to the foot. If he's not on this year's team, 5-7 might be generous, because there were a lot of weeks when his punting, especially through the first 8 or 9 games of the season, where he was averaging more yards than Michael Dixon's best season. Yeah, I just think he's really good. Okay,
well,
I got one more.
Yeah, I got one more for you. By the way, It's okay for us to say this because sometimes we get accused of being a little negative. So, hey, if you say we're negative, don't you got to give us the credit when the positives are coming in, right? And we're like, hey, we like this guy a lot. He's a great person. Pay him. Can't be like, man, you guys need to shut the hell up. No, you got to let us drive. Okay, here's the last one. This may be a quick one. And I don't know if you have a reaction to it, but apparently last night, I guess, Brandon Harris basically tweets out HookEm period, essentially announcing that he's returning and the thoughts that he might go to Temple and take that job, which, by the way, can I just say something real quick? If we had reported that Brandon Harris was leaning towards taking the Temple job to be in a certain capacity, like other people reported, and then it doesn't happen, the shit that we would get at Orange Bloods, our board would be on fire right now, Catch. You would be putting out fires all of last night, still putting out fires this morning. The fact that other people get to report it be inaccurate, and everyone's like, oh, okay, guess that it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It only happens for us. Yes, my overreaction is, first of all, I want all standards to apply to everybody in this market, outside of this market. I am tired of this damn double standard. All right, I had to let that go. Any reaction to Brandon returning, though?
It's funny that people were reporting that was such a strong possibility. I'm not saying that he didn't think about it.
Sure.
But I said this in our Slack channel, and I don't mean keeping it a buck. I don't mind keeping it a buck to say it on the middle of this show. Leaving Texas for Temple for that particular job, hustling backwards. I mean, Brandon Harris is a guy on the rise, and he's going to get job opportunities. And I know why that one might have seemed interesting, because the head coach is a guy that you've worked with and maybe you've got a good relationship with. But to go from where he is at Texas to a director of personnel job at Temple, that's just a bad career move.
Yeah.
So good on Brandon Harris for, I think, making the smart decision, because I don't know what the finance situation looked like. I don't know what he's making at Texas. Maybe he needs a raise. Maybe Temple was going to offer him more money because of this additional title. But I think he's one step away from a real step forward. And I think he's got himself hitched to the right wagon. I think that, I think that doing another year where he is and having Texas potentially take a step forward will only enhance his reputation. And, Tom Herman used to say he wanted people who other schools wanted to hire. That was the beauty for him of hiring a guy like Stan Drayton. He wanted to have guys that had larger aspirations than simply the job that they were taking. I think Brandon Harris, like I said, is a real up-and-comer. I didn't understand the Temple move other than the sentimentality of getting to go work with Stan Drayton.
Correct.
You don't go from Texas to Temple. You go from Texas to LSU because they give you more of a title and more responsibilities and more money. I think he's just at a place now. He's close. He's close to having, I think, a really high spotlight job. And, there's a lot of different things they can potentially do with him. I think he's better served doing it at Texas versus Temple. I've got one for you.
Okay.
feel like you're going to laugh at me. I feel like you're going to tell me that I say this all the time.
Oh, boy.
I think I'm retiring from fantasy football. And let me tell you why, okay?
Okay.
This is different than the past.
Let's hear it again.
This is different than the past. See, I told you were going to laugh at me. For those that don't know, Anwar and I have been in a fantasy football league together for 7 of the last 8 years. The one that didn't occur was I was a little bit too insane about it. I'm not as insane about fantasy football as I used to be, right? Agree?
No.
Like I've chilled out, and I think it's for like the betterment of my own mental health. This weekend, I'm not so much upset that Alex is going to beat me because he had Justin Jackson loitering on his roster at the exact right moment when Austin Eckler gets COVID for a second time. Come on, man. How are you getting COVID twice in the same football season? So Justin Jackson drops a 30-point game on me yesterday. I really couldn't recover from, except I had Chase Edmonds on my bench, and I didn't play Chase Edmonds. And do you know why I didn't play Chase Edmonds? Because it was freaking Christmas night. Cut me a little bit of slack here. I wasn't on my phone Christmas night to get the note. As far as I knew, James Conner was going to be playing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, God, the Colts have like the third best run defense in the NFL. Chase Edmonds got 5 points the week before. In a playoff game, I can't play a running back who's coming off of injury and barely played the week before. But because I'm not so insanely into fantasy football, even when I'm in the playoffs, like I once might have been, full disclosure, I'm admitting my incompetency. I lost my playoff game in part because I wasn't paying attention on Christmas Day when the announcement 90 minutes beforehand came in that Chase, I tuned in to the Cardinals game and I was like, oh, Chase Edmonds got a touchdown. I go, in retrospect, that sucks. And I watched a little bit more of the game and I was like, where the hell is James Conner? Like he made the Pro Bowl. Where is James Conner? And then they said like James Conner, late scratch from tonight. And I was like, so I say I retire from fantasy football because I'm my own problem now. I should have been on that like a hawk.
Yeah. And
I wasn't. And that has me thinking maybe it's time. That makes me feel like a guppy. Like to have worked that hard all season to get to that point and to have my season partly fall apart because I was busy being a dad on Christmas Day. Alex wouldn't let that happen to him. And Alex is a good dad too, but Alex would not have missed that little detail. The details got me this year, and it's fresh.
But Alex works for Roster Watch, so it's part of Alex's job to do that. But you know what I've noticed, Catch? And you and I kind of are going on the same trajectory. I feel like years ago, I had nothing but time and energy to devote into fantasy football. So I'd go into a fantasy football draft, Catch. I would have done no less than 30 mock drafts. Like I had it all ready to go. I knew who was on everybody's team. Like you couldn't tell me nothing as relates to, I was on top of everything, waiver wires every single week. Like I was reading different articles and a couple of things happen, right? That first of all, props to you. You've been married to the same person. I've been in and out. And, but you get into like relationships and marriages, and then you have kids that come on. And when they're younger, they're sleeping a little bit. So you still have some time. You're older. There's more things that you're devoting yourself to. I didn't do much fantasy football prep before our draft. I think I told you about this. It's probably one of the least prepared I've been. It was throughout the season. I missed waiver wire pickups. Like I was like, oh, damn it. I forgot when to put it in. And then towards the end, I started getting serious because I didn't want to like totally have a shitty season. But even when, and I scored a lot of points, but it's difficult, man. I don't have the same energy for it. I used to love it, and now I do it. I do fantasy football out of routine, but I can't even say I do it for a camaraderie. I talk to you every day. I don't need fantasy football to talk to you every day. I don't talk to anyone in the league. We haven't done did we do an in-person draft this year?
No. Remember?
So we haven't done one in like
people
2
got
years.
mad about it.
Yeah. So we haven't done one in 2 years. Look, if you want to next year say, hey, let's do like a weekly fantasy thing and one of those like weekly fantasy things, and it's just drop $20, and that weekend we can figure out who we want to pick up.
You just want the action for the day of with as little responsibility as possible.
Yeah, I'll be down with that for you.
It's the responsibility of being the commissioner.
Yeah,
I feel like if I step away, the league dies. And the league is over 20 years old. And so.
Will you get a trophy for it? Like, is anyone going to hand you a certificate for this?
You know,
at your funeral,
hey,
will it be like,
this will be the last thing I say, because now we're just drawing on and people probably tuned out on our own. Now you and I are just doing a show for us at this point. It's turned into therapy.
That's okay.
This has turned into Monday post-Christmas therapy. I just lost my thought. Fuck it.
That's okay. It's probably time to cut it down. At that point.
It was there. It was there. And it just disappeared.
Let the league go, Catch. Or hand it over to someone else.
Here's what it was. I won the champ. I went back to back in 2010 and 2011. And I looked it up. I thought I was going to beat Alex this week. So I looked it up. Since 2012, so the last decade, had I won yesterday, that would have been my fourth final in a decade, and I hadn't won. And I was just like, that means I haven't been happy in 10 years. Not just not happy with like my soul crushed. And I'm like, isn't the sign of maturity as we get older to remove these constant disappointments in our lives? And like, I'm going to have better mental health because I'm going to eliminate this thing that makes me unhappy. I've been pretty unhappy for the last decade with fantasy football. It almost cost us our relationship. Yeah. You were like, Ketchum's a maniac.
Yeah, I was like, I'm never playing in this league again. I was like, I don't know what this shit's about. I'm trying to have fun and talk smack. Like he's all pissed off. I'm like, nah, I ain't playing this.
I may or may not have started fires and voodoo curses in Anwar's first season just because I didn't want a new guy to show up and win the league in year one. And consequently, our two-time defending champion, who had some bad COVID luck this weekend, he won the first league in the first year. And now I just wish it had been you because I wished it hadn't been him. So it's funny how these things turn. I'm done. I've had my angst. I've spilled my blood. Do you have anything else?
Nah, I'm good.
Like the video if you want to. I'm not going to beg you today. Subscribe to the channel if you want to. Again, not begging today. If you enjoyed any of this, though, we'd appreciate it. But for myself and Anwar Richardson, we'll do this again tomorrow. I promise you. It won't be a therapy session for us tomorrow, but who knew today it was the thing we needed? Thanks for watching. We'll do it again tomorrow. Later.